Zambia is currently witnessing a strong drive to build a thriving SME sector. The promotion of SMEs is likely to grow with the allocation of funds to the Citizens Economic Empowerment Commission, CEEC. However, environmental and development experts, among other stakeholders, are concerned with the environment challenges this development is likely to bring. Today on News in Depth, Macpherson Nkuka looks at the link between SMEs and environmental protection. He will also be looking at measures that stakeholders are putting in place to ensure the development and growth of SMEs is done in an environmentally sustainable manner. I'm your host, Masauso Mukwayaya. Stay tuned.
Small and medium enterprises, SMEs, are widespread across the world and represent more than 90% of the total business enterprises in most countries. The enterprises play a key role in the economic development of most states. This is through employment opportunities and the production of goods and services that they present. The rise and development of the SME sector is undoubtedly the anchor of growth and development, both in developed and in developing countries. Small and medium enterprises are seen as an alternative to reduce unemployment and reduce poverty levels. In Zambia, there is currently a drive to strengthen the SME sector following the creation of the Ministry of Small and Medium Enterprises Development. Government has pledged to make funds available for SMEs as the sector is recognized as a key source for innovation, wealth, and employment in the country.
SMEs do not only promote job creation, but also wealth creation. By promoting SMEs, the intention is also to promote wealth creation in all parts of the country, because SMEs are local and they can be found in all parts of the country. Thirdly, I think it's a retention of resources within the country. If you have a lot of SMEs in the country, you retain the monies that you generate as an economy. The wealth is retained within the country. So these are the major reasons why promotion of SMEs was picked by the country.
The private sector forms a large part of the country's economy and feels there is a greater need for SMEs to be supported.
We should have done this 50 years ago. We should have done it 30 years ago. But we start now. That we need to be driving economic development in the direction of domestic investors, which are the small and medium enterprises. So I think it's the right way to go. We have set up a ministry for technology and science to make sure that Zambians are skilled. We have set up a ministry for small and medium enterprises to make sure that this drive for economic development in the hands of Zambian investors becomes a reality.
SMEs face unique challenges in accessing finance, including high interest rates coupled with short repayment periods. In welcoming the drive to grow in the sector, some stakeholders feel access to finances should be made with good conditions of repayment. If possible, grants should be prioritized.
You can't be asking for 100 million turnovers when trying to apply for a loan, or maybe trying to apply for a grant. They're asking you, do you have land and such assets? So I think there's need for government to look into that and make sure that whenever SMEs are looking for funds, they can easily buy access from banks, from funding institutions, from government themselves, and also prioritize giving of grants instead of loans.
Public efforts to support the growth of the economy often target large enterprises. But with the drive towards a growing SME sector, young people are being encouraged to take advantage of the opportunity.
Through SMEs, I see the young people growing. I see youths changing, advancing, and also trying to contribute also the economic development of this country. And it's only through this, because it's only through this I feel, we as an organization, that government should continue to come up with different programs. These are programs that are going to help the young people, to help the Zambian youth, so that are also part and parcel of the green economy.
At the center of this, there are concerns about environmental degradation, quality of life, and climate change. There is a global consensus on the need to ensure that economic growth is environmentally sustainable.
Zambia is trying to transition from a linear economy to a more circular economy, which prioritizes the reuse of materials. So I think that creates an opportunity for small business owners to actually dive into businesses that have to do with recycling, businesses that have to do with waste recovery, businesses that promote sustainable brands, sustainable clothing, for example. Businesses that do not really focus on too much waste generation, but businesses that can help minimize waste generation. So I think it's up to business owners, business-minded people, entrepreneurs to see this transition to a more circular economy as an opportunity to also diversify in their businesses. It's high time they move away from businesses that harm the environment, but businesses that actually protect the environment.
Support for the greening of SMEs is an important component of development. Although the environmental footprint of individual small businesses may be low, the aggregate impact is significant.
It is a requirement for every individual, every developer, to apply to ZEMA explaining exactly what they need to do, and then ZEMA will undertake an assessment of that application. That assessment comes out in 3 ways. Firstly, we look at that project in terms of the schedules that we have in the law. Is that development something that needs an impact assessment or not? If it does not need an impact assessment, we provide what we call a no objection decision, but we accompany that development with conditions so that that project does not have any impacts on the environment.
Developing and implementing policies and programs that support SMEs in becoming greener will help to ensure Zambia's long-term economic growth and the sustainability of its environment.
We need to begin to cultivate different mindsets of how business are managed, in a sense, so that they could always benefit each and every one of us at whatever level of development we are at. And it brings about the whole process of stakeholder management and dialogue to happen, so that people can be sensitized and the public can be aware of the kind of systems that need to ensure that there's sustainability in how we manage our environment, because at the end of the day, it affects us all.
Support for the broader population of SMEs in pursuing greener practices can save money for many businesses. This can be done by allowing the SMEs to participate in value chains and procurement processes that require a certain level of environmental protection that lowers carbon emissions. But what kind of businesses is government promoting?
The government is encouraging all sorts of businesses to be undertaken, but they have to be undertaken in a sustainable manner. If it's business to do with natural resources extraction, it has to be done in a sustainable manner. And also, there should be a lot of mitigation of the environmental impacts. I'll give an example to say, if you're in agriculture, for you to expand your farm plot, maybe there are trees there that you need to cut. The advice is that as you cut one tree, also try to plant some trees somewhere. Where it is possible to do your cultivation whilst trees are there, please do it so that we protect the environment, because protection of the environment is one of the key ways in which we can promote sustainable development.
The regulatory framework should incentivize the greening of SMEs while ensuring that these small and medium enterprises adhere to environmental standards.
We're looking at greening the economy going forward. So what does that mean? And when you look at sectors like agriculture, tourism, those are vulnerable to climate shocks. So if you're going to go into that business, we need to make sure a green perspective is there. And this will speak to a lot to even the legal and policy framework. So what does it mean to make sure that you undertake a business that doesn't pose harm to the environment, whilst at the same time trying to grow the economy?
However, there is a call to balance regulatory frameworks and the need for environmental protection to avoid overburdening SMEs with cumbersome compliance requirements.
We now need to make sure we say, okay, fine, you're in the agriculture sector, can you adopt climate smart agricultural practices so that we limit or reduce the greenhouse gas emissions in that sector. Then for forestry, we're talking about reducing deforestation, but a lot of people are in the charcoal business. So going forward, can we also limit the trees that are cut down? And so we need to start that conversation, and that's when we'll know exactly how we'll help the SMEs going forward, because it's a source of their livelihood.
Green innovators and green performers alike typically need access to finance, and there are various avenues through which government can mitigate challenges around this. Although a variety of different avenues can impact the green development of SMEs, two key avenues are innovation around eco-efficient products and the implementation of more energy and material-efficient processes.
Look around, what is it that we can do? What is it that is there? There are plastics. Someone was using plastics to produce fuel. That's a creative idea. There are bottles around, okay? There are a number of things, but I think government must be able to sensitize and conscientize the society, especially the youth, in terms of these businesses.
30 years ago in Lusaka, roads were full of plastic bags and papers and broken bottles, the things people were throwing out of their homes over the wall onto the streets. Today you don't see those things. Why? Because there's recycling of plastic, there's recycling of paper, there's recycling of steel. Metal is being picked up, put together and being sold to the steel foundries for them to make new steel products. So what was looked as waste that was polluting in the past is now a raw material for some other industry. And I think this is the way to go.
Supporting SMEs in becoming greener and providing a framework for innovative green SMEs to develop is not a simple task.
With the expansion or increase in the number of businesses, there will be also an increase in environmental challenges. But ZEMA is up to the task. So it is incumbent upon ZEMA to ensure that we push up our levels of compliance monitoring to ensure that people are doing the right thing. The job will increase, the environmental challenges will increase, but we believe that with the awareness that is being offered, and if people heed to our request for them to pass through ZEMA to get conditions of operating from ZEMA, will ensure that the environment will be protected in that way.
In this regard, people need to be educated in order for them to start business undertakings and to actually nurture and grow such undertakings.
We need to be able to guide them to develop in such a way that it's environmental friendly and in fact environmental fixing. For example, we have people all over the peri-urban areas that are growing mangoes, avocados, guavas, but they just plant them anyhow. By developing what we might call village orchards or rural orchard programs, people begin to realize that you can plant mangoes in an orderly fashion, you can plant avocados in an orderly fashion, make an orchard where that orchard is going to earn you revenues as a family, as a household, as a small and medium enterprise owner. But in so doing, what are you doing? You are reforesting the environment. So where trees were cut down for burning charcoal, you are replacing them with mango trees and fruit trees, which actually feed you.
Supporting the greening of SMEs involves a holistic approach that goes beyond the regulatory framework and makes use of all policy tools.
There's always need for the involvement of the locals themselves, as they are the ones that are in need, to ensure that there's no backlash in terms of what government is trying to prioritize and what the needs of the local people themselves are. And I believe CDF in its sense is a way of trying to ensure that whatever projects that communities are trying to in a way develop or bring about for their own benefit. So there should be this interaction between the government and the people themselves to ensure that the kind of growth that the government is trying to bring about is more holistic in terms of its approach.
Holistic government support for greening SMEs requires both short-term and long-term plans. The development, budgeting, and integrating of environmental policies into government strategies set the stage for coordinated action on greening SMEs.
Our collaboration starts with in our planning to come up with a policy that will be all-encompassing on SMEs. And also, as a ministry responsible for SMEs, we do take part in the various policies that are being developed in the various sectors. For instance, when the Ministry of Green Economy, who are responsible for environmental protection, are coming up with their plans, their programs, we are all consulted on how we can incorporate the aspects of SMEs.
Rules-based regulatory regimes for SMEs rather than complex payment systems are important in promoting good practices. This may include reduced environmental compliance inspections for SMEs that have implemented environmental management systems and reduced compliance costs for self-reporting of incidences. But emphasis on consultation before undertaking any business with possible environmental impacts is being placed on developers.
ZEMA is in line with what the new Dawn government is designed to do, which is to empower people through entrepreneurship, especially the youths, the ladies, the disadvantaged. What we want to do is to ensure that these projects are looked at and ensure that they are implemented speedily without any delays. So ZEMA is also up to the need of the people in a sense that these projects will not be delayed, but the projects will be looked at quickly. So we are requesting everyone, immediately they know they have a project to undertake, to consult ZEMA and ensure that their project is assessed, and we can assure you the projects will be assessed quickly and you'll be given conditions, you'll be given an approval to go on.
In the short term, environmental policies that target SMEs support effective environmental regulation of small enterprises.
Those may have to now just be aligned to the mandate of the Ministry of Green Economy and Environment to make sure that they are harmonized, aligned, so that even if, for instance, if we're going to attract foreign direct investment into the country, we need to make sure that when it's in the sectors where we know that the SMEs are thriving, can we encourage knowledge spillover and technology transfer? So when you talk about climate change and environmental sustainability, those are some of the issues you look at. What are the alternatives to, let's say, the energy sector, to renewable energy technologies, and how can we make sure that the SMEs also have a role to play in ensuring that we adapt or utilize renewable energy technologies.
So they shouldn't be able to fund or support any business that is going to have a negative impact on the environment. They should not even have access to funds. Then the other way of doing it is also to prioritize now businesses that actually promote green innovations, businesses that promote protecting the environment, businesses that have got a minor impact on the atmosphere and contribute less to the greenhouse effects. So if they can have a financial exclusion policy where no business that contributes to the problem is funded or supported with that regard, then it will be very, very helpful, and we're going to see a transition in most businesses to actually be more sustainable and more innovative and more green focused.
In the long term, the policies help to realize government's plans of making SMEs more environmentally sustainable. It is specifically important to measure what kind of incentives, initiatives, and programs are in place.
From a government, Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Commerce, Trade and Industry, and Ministry of Finance perspective, where we want to make sure that when we are promoting small and medium industries, we are promoting them to do sustainable businesses, profitable businesses, using as much local resources as possible. We don't want to be importing raw material from somewhere else if we can avoid it. So the research people, Mount Makulu, we have our research station here near the airport, where we can look at these products and begin to say, this is something that I think Zambia can produce, and begin to market the technology, but also to begin to market the product to the Zambian people at large.
Environmental regulation and enforcement, including the need for environmental impact assessments, EIAs, has generally been focused on larger enterprises and projects in sectors where some impact on the environment is likely to arise from an activity.
For us to come up with permits and such like, we look at the quantities that are involved and what exactly they are doing. We will get involved in any business venture that is discharging anything that has an impact on the environment. So our request again is for people who will be generating used oil, they need to contact us so that we can discuss and provide them with conditions under which they can generate, handle and dispose of such used oil.
It is also important for government to understand the impact of the incentives and to verify that they are actually reaching the targeted SMEs.
There must be a program that must be open to the community, and also stakeholders must come on board to champion this cause, because I see a situation where government comes up with an ideological program, a program that may be of benefit to the public, but we find that no one is coming on board. There's no one who's partnering with government to ensure that people are sensitized, people are well informed, people are guided, so that they are able to participate.
Those that are able to participate in the various entrepreneurship trainings, they are sensitized and they are trained on the need to protect the environment if their businesses have to be sustained. And so even in the applications for funding or loans, I think one of the components that is looked at is what are the environmental impacts of their businesses and how they are going to mitigate them. So that is taken care of at the time in which they are sensitized on how to conduct their businesses, building their skills in their various areas. The issue of environmental protection becomes one of the issues to be educated on, and therefore they should implement it in their business plan.
How government will set and enforce environmental regulation and incentivize compliance will also help support the greening of SMEs.
And people are beginning to build that link. We saw the creation of the extended producer responsibility, which aims for manufacturers to track their plastic waste beyond the end user. And so with that deliberate effort, I think it's showing that this is something that they should be driving into. And small businesses actually begin to understand that, but it needs to be upscaled. It's not at that level, because if these certain measures were actually being put in place, we wouldn't be seen by plastics that are under 30 microns being on the market. They should have already been removed from the market, but they are still there. So it also calls for increased raising awareness on the matter that have to do with sustainability and also environmental protection.
With some exceptions, the Zambian government has in the past provided support to private enterprises that were working to adopt green practices. However, policy frameworks, regulatory incentives and financial support programs were often not targeted at SMEs and were more accessible for larger enterprises. This, perhaps, was the belief that SMEs were still seen as a niche area of the economy. But now, the will to grow the sector is clear and the support to SMEs is evident, going by revelations that funds are sitting under the Citizens Economic Empowerment Commission, CEEC, to support the sector. Therefore, it is important that policies to support SMEs' greening efforts become mainstreamed with broader government support for the sector.
That is all we could package for you on this week's edition of News in Depth, where Macpherson Nukuka was looking at the link between SMEs and environmental protection. This is on the backdrop of the strong drive to build a thriving SME sector in Zambia. Join us next week at the very same time as we look at Zambia's prospects for the electric vehicle industry. I've been your host, Masauso Mukwayaya. Thank you so much for the privilege of your time. Pleasant viewing.